Hi there, everybody. This is Lee, and I'm talking about the Dakota Access Pipeline. Many people think that that fight is over, and apparently it is not. Even though the Army Corps of Engineers decided to grant the final permit to allow drilling underneath Missouri River and Lake Oahe, they say that it is not over. I'm sure Energy Transfer Partners wants it to be, but it is not. Chairman Dave Archambault has moved the fight to Washington, D.C. He's calling for pressure on elected officials in Washington, D.C. Also, a march, a Native American march on Washington, D.C. for March 10th. However, there are others involved with this fight against the pipeline who claim that the fight is on many different fronts. Washington, D.C., of course, and then on location at the pipeline itself, Chase Iron Eyes of Lakota People's Law Project, and then former candidate for Congress, says that there is going to be a fight against the pipeline that continues. It will never stop. And then also, there is an invitation for the veterans to return, and veterans are returning in waves. They're raising money. I'll have the link to the GoFundMe in the description, a link to Lakota Law Project, a link to Standing Rock, Veteran Stands, everything like that. And then Dallas Goldtooth says that there is another front, that Energy Transfer Partners, their headquarters is in Dallas, Texas. And so there will be actions there as well. In addition, there are actions against the banks that sponsor the pipeline. And so not everyone can go on location for whatever reason. They may have small children, they may have sick parents, they may be at jobs that they cannot leave, things like this. They have obligations. So if you cannot make the actions in Washington, D.C. with Dave Archambault, or you cannot make the actions in North Dakota, which is making Texas look pretty progressive right about now. Or if you cannot go to Dallas, Texas, you can, from the safety and comfort of your home, also take steps. The divestment campaign is ongoing. It is not ceasing. Wells Fargo is being shunned. People are divesting money, not just individual account holders, but also large account holders like the city of Seattle. And then also University of California system. They have agreed to divest money from Wells Fargo, not only because of their support for the pipeline, but also because of their support for the private prison industry, which has been used unfairly to enslave African Americans, Latino Americans, and then also currently have started targeting immigrant and refugee asylum seekers. And so this, is a type of slavery. It's discrimination, it's racial profiling, it's bigotry, and these institutions no longer wish to be a part of that. And so Wells Fargo is being divested from. They are not the only one. There are other banks, J.P. Morgan Chase, U.S. Bank, etc. And so, Bernie Sanders, during the course of his primary run, wanted to break up the big banks. And people kept saying, well, how are you going to do it? How are you going to do it, Bernie? It's being done. This is how you break up a big bank. We break the banks. Maybe the president can't. Maybe a presidential candidate can't. But we, the people, we can break up a big bank. And Wells Fargo has behaved very egregiously against its account holders. The mortgage crisis, it took advantage, the bailout, and then also creating lines of credit, which is a type for account holders without their permission, which is financial fraud. And so it's just too much. Wells Fargo has just been a very bad player. And so they're not the only one. I'll leave a link to the divestment movement also in the description. There are also pipeline actions in 10 other states besides North Dakota. and I'll leave a link in the description for that. There's a Trans-Pecos pipeline that's scheduled to run from Texas to Mexico for frack gas. There's a Diamond pipeline that's scheduled to run from um, Oklahoma, crossing through Arkansas, um, over the Mississippi River into Memphis, Tennessee. There's the Ball Trail pipeline. There's the Trans-Pecos pipelines. Many pipelines that are being scheduled. And so people are saying that it's just too much. All the fracking, all the transport of toxic oil and chemicals through main water sources, the Missouri River and the Mississippi River, because if the Dakota pipeline breaks, it contaminates the Missouri River. Every municipality along that river that uses the Missouri as its water source. That's Sioux City, Iowa. That's Kansas City, Kansas. Omaha, Nebraska. St. Louis, Missouri. And then there are pipelines scheduled to cross over the Mississippi too, as well. And so that's every city along the Mississippi: St. Louis, Memphis, Tennessee, New Orleans, Louisiana. They will be contaminated. And so if the water is contaminated, and likely it will because pipelines have been breaking all year. And when I say all year, I mean January and February. Pipelines have been breaking, and then certainly all last year. And then also, we have cities that are on the path to becoming Flint, Michigan. I mean, Flint was our early warning. It was our early warning. It was where we should have learned, all of us, that this cannot stand. Look what's happening to the people of Flint. Look at what has happened to their children. And so we have several major cities along pipeline routes that may possibly become Flint, Michigan, because of these fossil fuel companies that are behaving irresponsibly, ignoring stop orders for construction, ignoring stop orders for environmental review, ignoring stop orders because they're breaking treaty law. So we have some very bad players, and then people are responding. There's also another front. There's several fronts this fight is being fought on, but there's one other front, and I've spoken about it before. The fact that people are divesting from direct interplay with the pipeline projects themselves. They're divesting their holdings, whether they're accounts or mutual funds or whatever, from the banks that also sponsor these pipelines. They're moving their money into the renewable energy industry, which is growing. And I've spoken of that too myself on this channel, that there are projects ongoing, they're expanding. We would like to see our federal government take a lead role in moving the United States into the future along the lines of Germany, Japan, China, and India, which have very robust renewable energy industries. Certainly Germany and Japan are leaders. And then China and India are spending billions to also grow their industries. The United States is falling further behind because of leadership, and that our leadership has been corrupted, bought and bossed by the fossil fuel industry. So we're falling behind. We do have individual governors of certain states who have managed to grow the renewable energy industries and do fantastic, very dynamic projects. And so these are projects and industries in which you can move your money if you still want to remain an investor in the energy industry, rather than investing in the past in dirty coal, dirty nuclear energy. They keep calling it clean coal and clean nuclear energy, and there's just no such thing. The people in West Virginia and Kentucky and Pennsylvania who suffer the ill effects from coal can probably tell you more about that. And then also the fracking and the oil industry. People are moving away from that because It's actually causing so much contamination and destruction to the people in the surrounding communities downstream at the end of the pipeline. And so people are moving away from that. They're investing in solar, they're investing in wind energy and efficiency, biofuels as well. And so these are all steps, these are all actions that you can participate in. You can participate in all of them, or some of them, or one of them, but everything helps. And it's working. There is an effect, and not just at the Dakota pipeline, but future pipelines that are currently under review or currently under construction. People are paying attention, and they know that this fuel, or that these projects that have been sold to the public um, through media allowance, and not any mainstream media scrutiny and questioning of the motivations, but these projects have been sold as job creators and then for energy independence. But the thing is that energy is not for us. It's not for our use. It's not for our independence. That energy that's being harvested and causing so much destruction and contamination and suffering to the people in the vicinity where it's being extracted, the sickening of these people, the attacks on public health, that energy is not for domestic use. It's not for our use here in the United States. It's not for our independence. That energy is for export. That Trans-Pecos pipeline, it leads down into Mexico. That Dakota pipeline, it's leading down to the Gulf. That's not for us. The pipeline Sambal Trail, that's for export. It's not for us. It's not for our independence. It's for export, meaning that we have no benefit from it. People say, well, it's a job creator. It's not really. It creates temporary jobs during the construction phase. After construction, there's maybe 25 permanent jobs. So entire communities upstream and downstream are being sickened and poisoned in order to create 25 permanent jobs. Is it worth it? Maybe if you are one of those who has the 25 jobs, you say, hooray for me, but then your family is being sickened and poisoned. And so what did you just do to them? Are you still happy about that? Also, so, it's not for independence, it's for export. It's not for jobs because the jobs are very minimal, and there's still poison and contamination left behind, despite that one tiny job that's created for you. And then also the fact that people keep saying, well, okay, it's creating money. That money is also not for you. This is not a public good. It's not a public utility. It's a private industry. That money goes into the pocket of the CEO. There's no benefit to you. The only thing that you receive from these pipelines is contamination. Everything else is a benefit to the countries overseas, and then Kelsey Warren or whoever is the CEO of that particular pipeline. So you have been misled by mainstream media. You've been misled by many people involved with these pipelines who have abused public trust and public health, and then public tax dollars by using a police force that's supposed to serve and protect the people, and not individual property owners and CEOs, and become their private police force on our dime. So there's been a lot of abuse. There's been a lot of human rights abuses, escalation of misdemeanor charges into felonies. There's been assaults. There's been brutality. There's been multiple battery upon indigenous populations who have been protesting this intrusion on their sovereign territory, desecration of their sacred lands, burial grounds. So many bad things have been happening in order to finish these pipelines, and people are fighting back again on multiple fronts, because people are starting to realize that It's actually a nationwide problem. It's not just centered in one culture since we all depend on that water. That Missouri River flows through Sioux Nation and then it goes on to Sioux City, Iowa, Omaha, Nebraska, Kansas City, Kansas. All you red states that supported Trump, you're about to become Flint, Michigan if you don't say something or do something to make this stop, to halt construction on that pipeline. And very much pay attention and see past the propaganda. The Missouri River and the Mississippi River are two of the largest water sources in the United States. And so they serve as municipal water sources for many cities. And so that's a red state pipeline, pathline all the way to the Gulf. That's St. Louis, Missouri, Trump State. That's New Orleans, Louisiana, Trump State. That's Memphis, Tennessee, Trump State. So this is what's happening upstream for you. It's not just North Dakota. It's flowing to many people. So best wishes, and hopefully you can use the links that I leave in the description to see what you can do to participate in saving the water of about 18 million people and maybe more. Good luck to you.